Okay. I just. Welcome, children. It's good to be back with you. It's getting to be a tradition to be here on Father's Day, and I want to honor our fathers that are among us here today, and you're special individuals, very important for society. Well, Rex and Wes and the team went to Honduras this past week, and the risk was that, well, they wouldn't make it back in time, so they needed a second string quarterback up here to lead the sermon this morning. Well, I went on a little trip last week too, all across Kansas on a bicycle, 537 miles this year. And so there's a little bit of risk if I would even make it back in time. But Rex and I texted latter part of this week that it's looking good. I didn't get run over by a truck along the way or anything, so it's good to be here. So my lesson this morning is about the challenges that I faced on the bicycle ride last year. So this is my second year doing it. And as we go through this lesson, you may think, wow, how stupid was he to do this again after all the stuff that he suffered through last year? But I did, thanks to the encouragement and my Father, our Almighty God, being there with us. So in this, I thought a lot about the challenges I face on a little bicycle ride are kind of similar to what we face in life, anyway, stretched out over a period of time. So thought we would just talk about this a little bit. So last year, I went on, it's called Biking Across Kansas. It's a nonprofit organization that organizes these rides every year across Kansas. Last year was the 50th year of doing this. What they would do is they would organize, they would plan the route for that year, going down the highways, starting in western Kansas, at last year was at Tribune, Kansas, and we went all the way east to Atchison. You finish the ride by dipping your tire in the Missouri River. Over 500 miles for the ride. They coordinate with high schools for us to stay in the gymnasiums, use the locker rooms for cleanup and everything. They would organize with some nonprofit organizations in those communities for having meals for us. We would pay for the meals, but these communities, it was a opportunity for them to make some money for their organization by feeding us. Bike Across Kansas would also provide, we call them SAG stops. About every 15 miles on the road, they would have a kind of just a canopy set up with some drinks and refreshments and just kind of a place to just kind of go there and relax a little bit and then hop on your bike and keep on heading down the road. So it was all planned out. They even worked with the Highway Commission, the Highway Patrol, and that to make sure they keep the roads as safe as possible for us as we're traveling down these highways. So last year was the 50th year, is my 50th class reunion, and they were going through Lincoln, Kansas, which was my hometown. So I thought, the signs are all here. How cool is this? So I decided to, earlier that year, I had retired, got out my old bicycle, and I was up to about 25 miles a day. And I thought, I can do this. So I signed up to do this. So it was here is the route that we went with the mileage and everything on there. So finishing this route was important to me personally. It was a challenge that I wanted to take on to see if I could do this. But more important than that is finishing the Christian race that we're all a part of, completing the race like we want to. And Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3 talk about that race. And it looks like I can glean about 4 key points out of Hebrews chapter 12 that gives us some good advice on how we can faithfully run the Christian race that we are a part of. I'm just thankful that I can report that I did complete the Biking Across Kansas tour, that it was successful. And in getting ready for it and finishing it, seemed to be rather inspirational to some individuals, that they also got their bicycle out and started riding their bicycles and just thinking that, well, if old Meili can get out there and do this, I ought to be able to get out there and run some miles on my bicycle too. But I also thought, if I didn't complete it, if I didn't finish the race successfully, they would probably be discouraged, thinking, well, I didn't think he could do it anyway. So it was encouraging. So it's staying with the commitment to complete the task at hand. Wes kind of talked about this when he came to Clearwater that night. His subject was on why do bad things happen to Christians? And he gave some reasons for that. And the key part of that was other Christians are watching. And we are encouraged by seeing individuals who are going through struggles and they keep the faith. And that's so important to us. Jesus, remember back when there was an individual that came up to Jesus and said, Jesus, I'll follow you anywhere you go. And Jesus kind of told him, well, before you make that kind of commandment, let me tell you a couple things. Foxes have holes and birds have nests, but the Son of Man has nowhere to lay his head. So in other words, Jesus was telling this young man that you need to realize there's going to be difficulties. Difficulties are going to come your way. There's going to be times when you don't know where you're going to sleep at night. You don't know where your next meal is going to come from. But you need to realize it's going to be difficult and discouraging at times. So once you put your hands to the plow, you can't look back. So when people start the Christian life, a lot of them may assume that, oh man, God's taking care of me, everything is going to be fine now. Well, and then they come to start to realize that life does have struggles. And it may be too easy for them to give up and to think, well, I don't know about this. So the Hebrews were in that situation too. They were facing struggles, and their faith was being challenged, and that's why the Hebrew writer wrote this to them. So in Hebrews chapter 12, the writer says this as a source of encouragement to these Christians. He says, therefore, since we are surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses, let us also lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy that was set before him, endured the cross, despising the shame, and is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary and faint-hearted. You see that? So that you may not grow weary and faint-hearted. So this passage, the writer is not comparing the Christian life to like a wind sprint where you just go as fast as you can for a short distance. The Christian life is more like a marathon. It's over a longer period of time where you've got to have endurance built to endure that thing. So endurance over time is the critical factor. And that's the concern, is that over the long run, runners can grow weary and give up. The Apostle Paul put it this way. He said, I have, and we think about all the endurance and all the persecution and suffering that Paul went through. And Paul wrote to his last letter to Timothy, and he says, I have fought the good fight. I have finished the race. I have kept the faith. See, there's the endurance. Therefore, henceforth there is laid up for me the crown of righteousness, which the Lord, the righteous judge, will award me on that day. And not only to me, but also all those who have loved his appearance. So let's take a look at some key aspects of what the Hebrew writer wrote to these Christians about what can help us finish our race. The first thing we see is we can glean inspiration by those who have gone on before us. You see, the first word that in chapter 12, verse 1 is therefore. So what came before chapter 12? Chapter 11. Well, what's in chapter 11? What do we call that? The great chapter of faith. The cloud of witnesses. So that connects the cloud of witnesses, the faithful individuals of chapter 11, as being that cloud that can help us endure. So when we look through chapter 11, we see instances like Noah, starting in verse 7. And it talks about there in chapter 11, verse 7, how Noah was so patient and worked so hard. Now, that's something that's kind of a challenge for me. I want stuff done now. I want things to be completed in a short amount of time. I lack some patience. I wonder, why is this taking so long for this to complete? But then I think about Noah, and I hear him say, son, how long have you been waiting? Well, it took me 100 years to build this ark. And it was never easy. I tried to warn people about the upcoming flood. Nobody listened. Yet I kept building that ark. And when the floods came, the ark was our salvation. Son, you need to just keep on keeping on. Then we look a little bit later, and we see about Abraham. Abraham was called out of his cush, comfortable city of Ur, and was led by God to a strange area, a strange country. And then when he was of old age, God promised him a son. And that promise held true. That son was a very special individual from the promise of God made to Abraham. But yet, then Abraham was commanded to take his son up on top of a hill and sacrifice him. Yet, Abraham remained faithful. So, when we become discouraged, we can see Abraham whispering in our ear and saying, listen to God. Trust him. He will make things happen the way he says he's going to. Don't lose heart. Don't give up. Don't quit. Do whatever he says for you to do. Now, when I get discouraged, I can read about these heroes in chapter 11, but I also think about individuals in my own life. And maybe you do the same. Maybe there are saints that aren't here any longer that you saw the challenges that they faced in life, yet they remained faithful. And those individuals can be examples to us, to encourage us to live a faithful life as we know them personally, and they inspire us. When I was doing my training for biking across Kansas, I have a spin bike that I would get on, especially when it was cold outside. And I would turn on this YouTube channel, and this gal would have 20 to 30-minute exercise sessions for a spin bike. And she would start out, and within 5 minutes, I was huffing and puffing and sweating and just, whew. And she would go through these sets of maybe 1 to 2 minutes at a time, where you'd crank up your resistance and you just pedal hard. And there'd be a counter there on the seconds, the amount of time left to keep cranking. And you'd be cranking away and just, and just like, oh man, when's this going to be over? And she'd start saying, come on, you can do this. Keep on, keep it going. And then finally, the timer would go off, and okay, relax a little bit. And so when I was climbing the hills out in northeast Kansas, up and down those hills, I kept hearing that gal in my ear saying, you can do this, keep on going, you can do this. It was encouraging to me for that. So, in a sense, we should think about the Christian life as a relay race. There are those who have finished the course, and they have handed that baton off to us to continue that race. And now they're watching us as part of that cloud of witnesses. Come on, you can do this. You can do this. Nonetheless, to be in that cloud of witnesses, first you have to be faithful to God, to be in God's family. So when we feel like quitting, when we feel like giving up, this is just too difficult to live this Christian life, we need to realize that baton has been passed off to us. We're the runners now, and they're cheering us on. And that should give us some inspiration to continue on. So be inspired by those who have gone on before us. Realize that we have the baton now, yet also realize that there are individuals watching you, how you are handling situations that come up, the difficulties. You're their inspiration for their future. Another thing that we can do to help us finish the Christian race is to lay aside anything that's going to slow us down. The writer says, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so closely entangles us. The writer is saying that sin acts as a weight that burdens us, that distracts us from our mission as Christians. And the writer is saying to get rid of that. Let it go. Get it off of your shoulders. So, as I was preparing for biking across Kansas, I would take a look at my bike. What weights can I remove? What is there that I don't need on my bicycle that I'm dragging 500 miles across Kansas? Do I need a spare tire? Do I need a tire repair kit? One water bottle or 2 water bottles? Should I carry a rain jacket with me? And I'd go through and start thinking about all these things. Then I'd start to think, Meili, here's the easiest way to lose some weight off your bicycle right here. So I worked on that as well. So weight encumbers us. It distracts us from doing the right things. So we need to do a self-examination of our own spiritual lives and see, it may be good things that we're doing, but they still may be distracting us from doing the right things. So it's something for us to be prepared for. Another aspect that we need to consider in finishing the Christian race is we need to be prepared for the struggles that will come our way. The Hebrew writer puts it this way: let us run with endurance the race that is set before us. Remembering that this is a marathon we're in, a long-term endurance run. In high mileage bike rides like this, there's kind of two critical times. The first critical time is you get started in the morning. Oh, it's beautiful out. You're just cranking away. There's a person in front of you. You got to pass them. And then there's another person. You just speed up, speed up, speed up. And then after a while, you realize, I don't have any energy. I've just wasted all my energy on my first 5 miles, and I've got 50 miles to go. The second critical time that comes in these long-term runs like this is about the halfway point. You've been cranking away, and you got 50, 60 miles to go. You get down the road 30 miles, and you're bushed. Runners call it hitting the wall. And you realize, I'm only halfway there, because you have burnt up your endurance. You don't feel like pedaling anymore. You want to give up. So running with endurance requires preparation. So in endurance running or biking and that, in longer distances, that means building up some muscle strength and doing that. My goal in biking across Kansas was, God, show me Kansas. I want to see this part of the state that I have not seen before. So my preparation in getting ready for it, I had a 12-week plan, doing 1,240 miles, which was about 50 rides about 3 times a week. So in 2024, to prepare for biking across Kansas, I biked over 1,700 miles in 51 rides for a total of 122 hours sitting on that little bicycle seat. That was just the preparation work of it. In doing that, I participated in some group rides. There's a group in Wichita called the Wichita Geezers. Just some old guys on a bicycle looking for breakfast. But they would run 30, 40 miles a day. Then there was some other events, the Chisholm Trail Ride in Newton, Kansas, the Flint Hills Cottonwood 200, which was 70 miles. And in that ride, I got to experience spending the night in a high school gym. So it was helping me to prepare for that part of the ride as well. Riding in different weather conditions, wind and heat, riding on highways with semis coming around you and experiencing that. Plus also learning some bicycling skills along the way too. Having the right, being able to ride long distances, being able to draft. So when you see 2 bicycles, one close to the other, they're drafting. The one in the back is keep picking up, saving about 30% of their energy because they're staying in the draft of the bicycle in front, learning how to be able to do that. Pedaling, there's skills on pedaling and things like that. Looking at the equipment, making sure I have the right types of shoes. Nice padded jersey pants was very nice. And things like that took place. And then I thought, well, I should probably go to the doctor and get a checkup. And my doctor goes, what possessed you to think of doing such a thing? But I went ahead and did it anyway. So preparation is key. Then running the race that was set before me. So I got a few little stories about some of the struggles that went on last year. Well, on Saturday and Sunday and Monday, there was a 20-mile-an-hour easterly wind, so a headwind blowing at us for 20 mile an hour. And then it got hot in the afternoons. On Friday, we rode a bus from Wichita to Tribune, got there a little bit after lunch, and got my backpack out and set up my spot in the gymnasium. And then I was anxious to get out, and it's only 16 miles to the border from there. So I hopped on the bike. I only had one water bottle with me. Couldn't find my bike computer. Just kind of chaos, but I was anxious to make it to the border, only 16 miles. I hadn't had lunch, so I headed out. I got 8 miles down the road, and I started feeling a little sick, a little faint. And I said, and I thought, and I got to the point where I decided I'm going to turn around. Okay, let's see, 8 miles out, 8 miles back to Tribune. That's 16 miles. I could say I went to the border. So I turned around and started back, and I was so wore out, so hitting the wall that I couldn't stand up without fainting. I was squatting alongside the road, and there's a car that came that had a bicycle rack on the back of it because they had hauled their biker out to the border to ride back. So I hopped a ride back to the school building that night and got refreshed and sit down and drank a lot of water and things. So that night, Friday night and Saturday morning, I thought, I don't have a picture of me at the border. I've got to get that picture. So Saturday morning, I started out early, went the 32 miles to the border and back to the Tribune, plus another 47 miles to the next town in Scott City. Well, I made it to the border, got the picture. Ta-da. So I proof that I made it to Colorado border and then came back. But when I was coming back, I got to Leote, and I was just so tired already with the wind and everything. I met up with a Lawrence teacher who was there too. And so we rode together to make it the rest of the way to Scott City. And he was wore out too, so every 6 miles or so we would stop and relax a little bit and then continue on. So we finally made it to Scott City. Then the next day was also a hard day. That was on Sunday. We're pumping against the wind again, and this was just getting ridiculous, fighting against the easterly wind. And I was thinking, I didn't prepare good enough. I'm not ready for this. I think I may need to call my wife to come get me. But we had an agreement that she would not come get me unless I was in a hospital or something that bad. She wasn't going to let me give up. So I knew I couldn't call on her. But then Monday and Tuesday, things went better. Monday, I was looking forward to getting into Lincoln and seeing my hometown and that was really great. And then the next day, we went to Concordia, and that worked out good, even though it was hot. Then we started the hills, going from Frankfort to Holton. Just these long hills. I mean, you could coast for a mile down these hills, picking up speed, but yet then you had a mile going up the other hill, and just hill after hill after hill. And so we just kept doing those. Then in Soldier, Kansas, south of town, there are 3 hills. And when we got into Soldier, Kansas, they had scriptures written on the main street of town warning us and saying prayers for us about these 3 hills. And we go, sounds interesting. Then you get in the hills, and they were just steep, up and down and up and down, so fast getting back up the other side that you would lose all your momentum within a fourth of the way up. And it was a challenge, but we made it through Soldier Hills. Then on the last day, moving into Atchison, Kansas. Well, we'd kind of been watching the weather. Slight chance of rain, but it was going to stay to the north of us. So I headed out early that morning. Atchison, Kansas was the finale. I was going to meet Debbie, and my granddaughter was going to meet me there. So I was anxious to get there as fast as I could. So I headed out to Atchison, Kansas, which was the finale. Well, the weatherman was wrong, dead wrong. When you looked on the weather map, it was bold red. I mean, we got out there and the rain came down, and the thunder was so strong you could feel the concussion of it. And when the lightning would hit, the sound was right there too. So it was right on top of us. It was just a downpour of rain. So I found this hay shed, and I hung out in that hay shed, 60 degrees, and we sat in that hay shed for over 2 hours. So I turned my light on so that others coming down the road could see that, hey, here's a place you can go save. You can get out of the rain by being in this hay shed. And some others came in there too. So it just a flat downpour, just cold and wet and just shaking, just so chilly and struggling with that. And then I remembered I didn't pack my rain jacket. It was in my clothes, in my suitcase, but I didn't take it. So the last 25 miles after the rain stopped, my shifter wasn't shifting very good, and I thought I sounded like chitty chitty bang bang that last 25 miles going up and down the hills and getting there. So long rolling hills that I didn't think would ever stop. Well, that was the experience. That was the race, okay? Long story. I hope I didn't bore you too much. What did I learn from this? Well, enjoy the journey. Take time to enjoy the journey. We can get so focused on, I've got to get this done. I've got to beat this deadline. We got to get this done. We got to get that done. We've got all these lists and everything, that we miss the sights of life along the way. In the morning, getting out on that road, meadowlarks, they're pretty loud when they're right up next to you. And the calmness, and the coolness of the air, smelling the clover, and just enjoy. You just can't help but sing, "There is a God and He is alive," or "America the Beautiful." Being able to see Quivira National Park, just pulling off and just looking at the beauty of that area. And on the journey of life, it's kind of the same way. We can get so busy with tasks that we miss seeing the beautiful sights that are right there in front of us. Not only was the journey about the beauty of God's creation, it's about God's people as well. Encouraging others along the route. The Lawrence teacher who we met and struggled together with to get to Scott City, going through that together and encouraging one another. There was a product engineer who I met was alongside the road, and he was down like I was on the first day, and just in bad, looked like he's in a bad situation. I pulled off and spent some time with him, just trying to encourage him and give him fluids and stuff to help build him up, because I knew what he was going through. There were children with their families, with their lemonade stands, standing and waving at us and cheering us on as we were going down the road. There was a farmer sitting in front of his house with his canopy, cooler full of waters, just free water. So I stopped in to visit with him, and he was just taking notes of where are you from? And just visiting with him. This was a classmate of mine who promised me cheesecake when I got to one of the towns one night. Then there were little towns like Delphus, Kansas, and other little towns that served us lunch. These are little towns of like 200 people, serving over 700 of us, working together as a community to support us in this. Then all the volunteers and just so many people who were so encouraging along the way that made that the challenges a little easier to overcome. Another thing, it's not only about the creation and the people, it's also about fixing your eyes on the goal, our long-term goal. The first 3 days battling the strong headwinds, it was tough. We kept looking forward to the next SAG stop, the next town, the next mile marker, and just the next goal. Nest City, I was looking forward to eating my classmates' cheesecake. In Lincoln, getting into Lincoln, I was looking forward to seeing my old hometown and being there for the night. In Delphus, that was my grandparents' town, so I was looking forward to making it there. In Soldier Hills, just putting the head down and just focusing on making it to the top of the hill. So spiritually, it's about keeping our faith, just trusting in God to make it through the challenges that we're facing. Well, the key thing is we learn from Jesus as our example, as the one who endured so much for us. In that final piece of advice in Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 through 3, the writer says, fix your eyes on Jesus. It says, looking unto Jesus, the founder and perfecter of our faith. Consider him so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. So we learn how to endure by remembering what Jesus went through. All that Jesus endured, like was mentioned here at the communion, the humiliation, the shame, the hostility of sinful people. And notice how he endured it. He had his eyes fixed on the line, fixed on the finish line. So he endured the cross, looking for the joy that awaited him. He endured the humiliation and knowing that where he was heading to be a place of honor at the right hand of God. He is our champion in finishing strong. Every Christian needs to hear this because it's so easy for us to quit when the going gets tough. It's easy to say, I can't do this anymore. But the writer of Hebrews says, fix your eyes on Jesus. He's the author and perfecter of our faith. The wise man in Proverbs says, Proverbs 3:5 says, trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. So if we trust in him, he can take us through all the challenges that come our way. Completing the Bikes Across Kansas tour last year in Atchison and dipping my tire in the Missouri River was just an overwhelming experience for me. Coming down Atchison Avenue with the last mile and just thinking about all the work that I had gone through to prepare for this. Seeing the great crowd clapping and cheering us on as we're finishing this race. And then loved ones we recognize are waiting there for us. Seeing Debbie and Brooke there just couldn't, it was just amazing. Just the complete sense of accomplishment, being successful in completing this race. So I kind of copied Paul's words a little bit, with a little bit of liberty here. I said, I fought those hills of Soldier, Kansas, the wind and the rain, and completed the tour. Therefore, at the end of the tour, I didn't receive a crown, but I did get a t-shirt. So looking back on this event in my life, I see that the investment in preparation was what was key. It's what made it a successful completion. So each challenge I faced, I was prepared for what was to lie ahead. Paul puts it this way, thanks be to God who gives us the victory through our Lord Jesus Christ. So I thank God that I made it through this. Without him, I would not have. I'm thankful for the great cloud of witnesses that I had that were praying for me during this. I'm especially thankful for Debbie, my wife, being my coach and encourager to help me through this. Without her continuing to encourage me and prod me and kick me out the door once in a while and telling me, you can do this, I may have given up. So for athletes completing a race, there's only one winner. But in the Christian walk, in the Christian race, we all win. We complete the race that's set before us. Everyone who finishes the race receives the reward. So it's not about how fast you run, you just run. Just endure. So our prayer this morning is, if you are needing help, if you are needing encouragement, if you are needing support in the challenges you are facing to endure, to keep on keeping on, here's a few little tips for you, as well as this loving family here is here to help you. So I'd like to extend the Lord's invitation to you this morning. If there's anything we can do, if you haven't started the race, if you're not a child of God, the opportunity is here for you today to be added to the family, be cleansed of your sins, given the gift of the Holy Spirit, walk away as part of God's family with the support of the group here. Or if you have any other need that you're struggling with or have any need for this congregation, please let us know as we stand and sing.
Give to the Savior.